أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله، لا إله إلا الله. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله يحفظكم يا أشرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. اللهم صل على أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين علي ولي الله ووصي رسول الله وخليفته بلا فصل. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك ونحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولن أعداءهم أجمعين. اللهم لن قتلة الحسين وأولاده وأصحابه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. استغفر بيده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم ان اللہ وملائکتہ یصلون علی النبی یا ایھا الذین آمنوا صلوا علیہ وسلموا تسلیما بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم سبحان من لا یعتدی علی اہل مملکتی سبحان من لا یاخذ اہل الارض بالوان العذاب سبحان الرؤوف الرحیم اللہم اجعل فی قلبی نورا وبصرا وفہما وعلما انک علی کل شیء قدیر اللہم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ اللہم صلی علی محمد اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ اللہم صلی علی محمد اشہد ان امیر المومنین و امام المتقین علی ولی اللہ و وصی رسول اللہ و خلیفتہ بلا فصل اللہم صلی علی محمد اشہد ان امیر المومنین و امام المتقین علی حجۃ اللہ اللہم صلی علی محمد حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الفلاح حی علی الفلاح حی علی خیر العمل حی علی خیر العمل قد قامت الصلاۃ قد قامت الصلاۃ اللہ اکبر اللہ اکبر لا الہ الا اللہ لا حول ولا قوة الا باللہ العلی العظیم استغفر اللہ ربی و اتوب الیہ. اللہ اکبر. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم الحمدللہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین اہدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم انا اعطیناک الکوثر فصل لربک ونحر ان شانک هو الابتر. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العظیم وبحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. سمیع اللہ لمن حمیدہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العلی وبحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. اللہ اکبر. استغفر ربی و اتوب الیہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العلی وبحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. اللہ اکبر. بحول اللہ وقوتہ یقوم واقعد. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم الحمدللہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین اہدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم قل هو اللہ احد اللہ الصمد لم یلد ولم یولد ولم یکن له کفوا احد کذالک اللہ ربی. اللہ اکبر. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجہم. یا اللہ یا رحمان یا رحیم یا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبی علی دینک. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. اللہ اکبر. سبحان ربی العظیم وبحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. سمیع اللہ لمن حمیدہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العلی و بحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. اللہ اکبر. استغفر ربی و اتوب الیہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العلی و بحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. اللہ اکبر. الحمدللہ. اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ وحدہ لا شریک لہ واشہد ان محمدا عبدہ ورسولہ. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد وتقبل شفاعتہ وارفع درجتہ بحول اللہ وقوتہ یقوم واقعد. سبحان اللہ والحمد للہ ولا الہ الا اللہ. سبحان اللہ والحمد للہ ولا سبحان اللہ والحمد للہ ولا الہ الا اللہ. استغفر ربی. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العظیم و بحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. سمع اللہ لمن حمیدہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العلی و بحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. اللہ اکبر. استغفر ربی و اتوب الیہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العلی و بحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. اللہ اکبر. بحول اللہ وقوتہ یقوم واقعد. سبحان اللہ والحمد للہ ولا الہ. سبحان اللہ والحمد للہ ولا الہ. سبحان اللہ والحمد للہ اللہ اکبر. استغفر. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العظیم و بحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد وعجل فرجہم. سمع اللہ لمن حمیدہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العلی و بحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. اللہ اکبر. استغفر ربی و اتوب الیہ. اللہ اکبر. سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان ربی العلی و بحمدہ اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. اللہم ارزقنی شفاعۃ الحسین یوم الورود. اللہ اکبر. الحمدللہ. اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ وحدہ لا شریک لہ واشہد ان محمدا عبدہ ورسولہ. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. السلام علیکم ایھا النبی ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. السلام علینا وعلی عباد اللہ الصالحین. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. اللہ اکبر. اللہ اکبر. اللہ اکبر. اللہم صل. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم ان اللہ و ملائکۃ یصلون علی النبی یا ایھا الذین آمنوا صلوا علیہ وسلموا تسلیما اللہم انی اسألک بحق محمد وعلی وفاطمہ والحسن والحسین وصاحب الزمان ادرکنی ولا تہلکنی اللہم عجل لولیک الفرج اللہم ادخل علی اہل القبور السرور اللہم اغن کل فقیر اللہم اشب کل جائع اللہم اقض کل عریان اللہم اقض دین کل مدین اللہم فرج عن کل مکروب اللہم رد کل غریب اللہم فک کل اسیر اللہم اصلح کل فاسد من امور المسلمین اللہم اشف کل مریض اللہم سد فقرنا بغناک اللہم غیر سوء حالنا بحسن حالک اللہم اغزنا الدین واغننا من الفقر انک علی کل شیء قدیر اللہم صل علی محمد اللہم صل یا اللہ یا اللہ اللہم صل بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم یا اللہ السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ والارواح التي حلت بفنائک علیکم منی جمیعا سلام اللہ ابدا ما بقیت وبقی اللیل والنہار ولا جعل الاخرة منی لزیارتکم السلام علی الحسین وعلى علي ابن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين السلام علیکم جميعا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا مولانا یا غریب الغرباء السلام علیکم یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء السلام علیکم شمس الشموس السلام علیکم انیس النفوس السلام علیکم ایها المدفون بأرض طوس السلام علیکم مغیظ الشیعۃ والزوار فی یوم الجزا السلام علیکم سلطان العرب والعجم السلام علیکم ابا الحسن علی ابن موسی الرضا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا مولانا یا صاحب العصر والزمان الامان 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 من فتنة الزمان والمکان السلام علیکم خلیفۃ الرحمن السلام علیکم شریک القرآن السلام علیکم مظہر الایمان السلام علیکم امام الزماننا عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسہل اللہ تعالی مخرجک وظہورک السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Very important announcement. There is a car, a gray Nissan with the license plate ZY65327. A gray Nissan ZY65327 license plate that is parked in 2 spots. We request you to move your car right away. Otherwise, we are going to have to take action. Again, a gray Nissan ZY65327. Thank you. Another announcement really quick, we request the ladies to make their way downstairs. Any lady that is still upstairs, you're holding up the Majlis up here. Please make your way downstairs. Thank you. صلوات پر محمد وال محمد. There is a Momin brother in our community that has written a few lines of poetry about Hazrat Ali Asghar, and I just want to share those with you. Inshallah. Can I get another loud salawat? A child is born, shahadat in one hand, thirst in the other. A child is born, shahadat in one hand, thirst in the other. His cradle sways, a battle rages. His cradle sways, a battle rages, a reservoir of hopes, a salvation of tears. His mother dreams, his mother cries. His mother dreams, his mother cries, an arrow awaits his father broken. An arrow awaits, and his father broken. A few steps forward, a few steps backwards. A few steps forward, a few steps backwards. Father and son fused together by the neck, once kissed by the house of Nabuwat. A father and son fused together by the neck, once kissed by the house of Nabuwat. His cradle sways and the tents burn. His mother waits and a cradle burns. His mother waits and a cradle burns. Your blood so pure, the heavens nor the earth could bear the weight. Your father's cradle gave salvation to the heavens, yet yours was set ablaze. O Ali Asghar, shahadat awaits. O Ali Asghar, shahadat awaits. Salawat par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Another salawat. اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، میرے لاڈلے کہاں ہو، میرے لاڈلے کہاں ہو، سینے تمہیں لگاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، تیرے جھولے کو سکینہ رو رو کے چومتی ہے، تجھ گھر میں ڈھونڈتی ہے، تیری موت کی خبر میں کیسے اسے سناؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، میری جان جا رہی ہے، یہ سوچ سوچ اصغر، اس پھول سے گلے پر، یہ تیر کیسے جھیلا، بہنوں کو کیا بتاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤں چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، نیزے سے گر رہا ہے ننھا سا سر تمہارا، دل روتا ہے ہمارا، میرے ہاتھ تو بندھے ہیں، سر کس طرح اٹھاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، جھولے کے ساتھ بیٹا میرے ہاتھ جل گئے ہیں، ظالم بھی ہنس رہے ہیں، تیری آخری نشانی ہائے کس طرح بچاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، تم رات کو ہمیشہ سنتے تھے ماں سے لوری، اب نیند آتی ہوگی پھر گود میں لٹا کر، ناد علی سناؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں۔ صلوات۔
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔ ماں کہتی تھی جلتے ہوئے جھولے سے لپٹ کر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، ماں کہتی تھی جلتے ہوئے جھولے سے لپٹ کر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، ظالم نے تجھے قبر سے اس طرح نکالا، سینے پہ لگا جس گھڑی بیٹا تیرے نیزا، لاشے کو تیرے دیکھ کے بولا سر اکبر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، اور اب تک میری آنکھوں سے وہ منظر نہیں جاتا، گردن سے تیری خون ٹپکتا رہا بیٹا، رومال بھی باندھا نہ گیا تیرے گلے پر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، اور تم مر گئے یہ بات وہ اب تک نہیں مانی، ضد کرتی ہے بھائی کو پلاؤں گی میں پانی، کوزہ لیے مقتل میں کھڑی ہے تیری خواہر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، اور جس تیر سے ناکے کو گراتے ہیں زمین پر، وہ تیر لگا ننھے سے حلقوم پہ آ کر، تم خون اگلتے رہے بابا سے لپٹ کر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، اور مجبور تھی گھر میں میرے پانی ہی نہیں تھا، ورنہ تو دھلا دیتی میں یہ خون بھرا چہرہ، دادی سے شکایت نہیں کرنا میری جا کر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، مارا ہے ستمگر نے سکینہ کو تماچا، غازی کی طرح تم سے بھی دیکھا نہیں جاتا، بند آنکھیں کیے روتے ہو تم نو کے سنا پر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، اور سر اس لیے نیزے سے گرا دیتے ہو اپنا، گودی میں میری آنا ہے شاید تمہیں بیٹا، لیکن ہے بندے ہاتھ اٹھا سکتی نہیں سر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر، اور سجاد وہ کہتی تھی چلا بھی نہیں جاتا، دو چار قدم بعد ہی گر جاتی ہوں بیٹا، میری بھی کمر خم ہے تیری لاش اٹھا کر، ہائے ہائے علی اصغر،
شیرخوار کو ہفتم سے پیاس ہے، بچے کی نبض دیکھ کے ماں بے حواس ہے، نہ دودھ ہے نہ پانی کے ملنے کی آس ہے، پھرتی ہے آس پاس یہ جنہیں سے پھرتی ہے آس پاس یہ جنہیں سے آس، کہتی تھی کیا کروں میں دہائی حسین کی، پتلی پھرے آج میرے نورین، پتلی پھرے آج میرے نورین، فریاد یا علی میں کدھر جاؤں یا علی، ان داغوں کو کہاں سے جگر لاؤں یا علی، کس طرح ان کی سانس کو ٹھہراؤں یا علی، پانی کا قید میں کہاں پاؤں یا علی، پانی کا قید میں کہاں پاؤں یا علی، پچھلی کو آنکھ کھولے تھے اب کھولتے نہیں، روتے رہے امکتے نہیں بولتے نہیں، روتے نہیں امکتے نہیں بولتے نہیں، آخر کہا یہ سب نے بلاؤ امام کو، لاؤ خدا کے واسطے لاؤ امام کو، اس بے زباں کا حال سناؤ امام کو، نیلے رگے گلے کے دکھاؤ امام کو، نیلی رگے گلے کے دکھاؤ امام کو، اکبر کی لاش لے گئے ہے قتل گاہ میں، کوئی پکار لو ابھی ہوئیں گے، کوئی پکار لو ابھی ہوئیں گے راہ میں، بیٹھے سرانے جھولے کے شبیر سر جھکائے، اصغر کے کان سے لبیں موجز نما ملائے، چپکے سے کچھ کہا کہ وہ سنتے ہی مسکرائے، سوئے حسین ہاتھ میں ساختہ بڑھا، سوئے حسین ہاتھ میں ساختہ بڑھا، بولی سکینہ بابا نے مشکل کشائی کی، اماں مبارکہ کھلی میرے بھائی کی، اماں مبارکہ کھلی میرے بھائی کی، پہنچے قریب فوجو تیورا کے رہ گئے، چاہا کرے سوال پا شرما کے رہ گئے، غیرت سے رنگ اڑ گیا تھرا کے رہ گئے، چادر پسار کے چہرے سے سرگا کے رہ گئے، چادر پسار کے چہرے سے سرگا کے رہ گئے، آنکھیں جھکا کے بولے یہ ہم ان کو لائے ہیں، اصغر تمہارے پاس غرض لے کے آئے، اصغر تمہارے پاس غرض لے کے آئے، پھر ہونٹ بے زبان کے چومے جھکا کے سر رو کر کہا جو کہنا تھا سو کہہ چکا پدر، باقی رہی نہ بات کوئی اے میرے پسر، سوکھی زبان تمہیں دکھا دے، سوکھی زبان تمہیں دکھا دے، تیری زبان لبوں پا جو اس نور حسین نے تھرا کے آسمان کو دیکھا حسین نے تھرا کے آسمان کو دیکھا حسین نے تھرا کے آسمان کو دیکھا حسین نے مولا پلکوں دیکھ رہے تھے کہ ناگہاں لی ہرملا نے شان سے دو ٹانگ کی کماں ترکش سے جب کے کھینچ لیا تیر جاستا چھوڑا کمازتا کے حلقوں میں چھوڑا کمازتا کے حلقوں میں چھوڑتے ہی حلق بچے کا چھیدا جو تھرا کے آسمان کو دیکھا صغیر تھرا کے آسمان کو دیکھا صغیر تھرا کے آسمان کو دیکھا صغیر نے
صلوات مجھے مطلوب ہوگا جام لینا جب بھی کوثر کا سلام ایسا پڑھوں گا دل برائے سلام ایسا پڑھوں گا زمین کربلا کیا پوچھنا تیرے مقدر کا ہے تجھ میں آج تک محفوظ سرمایہ پیغمبر ہے تجھ میں آج تک محفوظ سرمایہ پیغمبر کمر کیوں خم نہ ہو دل غم سے ٹوٹے کیوں نہ سرور کا علم بردار آخر علم بردار آخر لبے دریا لمبر دار بھی کام آ گیا آخر بس اب اللہ بس اب اللہ حافظ تیری غیرت کو آخر کیا ہوا کچھ تو نے سوچا بھی بھری محفل میں کیسا بھری محفل میں کیسا کا مجھے مطلوب بانو پچھلے پھر اصغر کے لیے روتی ہے ایک وہ جاگتی ہے خلق خدا سوتی ہے سر کو بھی پیٹتی ہے جان کو بھی کھوتی ہے یہ عجب غم کے تذکیر نہیں ہوتی ہے یہ عجب غم کے تذکیر نہیں ہوتی ہے پیٹتے پیٹتے بے ہو جو ہو جاتی ہے علی اصغر علی اصغر کی صدا آتی ہے علی اصغر کی صدا آتی ہے کبھی کونے میں وہ منہ ڈھام کے چلاتی ہے اور کبھی صحن میں گھبرا کے نکل آتی ہے، کوک پکڑے ہوئے ہر ایک طرف جاتی ہے، ڈھونڈتی ہے مگر اثر کو نہیں پاتی ہے، ڈھونڈتی ہے مگر اثر کو نہیں پاتی ہے، تن کو لرزش جدا اور ہے منہ زرد جدا، دل تڑپتا ہے جدا، دل تڑپتا ہے جدا، کبھی کہتی ہے کہ گھر میں میرے اندھیارا ہے، علی اصغر کی جدائی نے مجھے مارا ہے، ہائے میں گھر میں ہوں جنگل میں میرا پیارا ہے، مہربانی جو کرے موت کو چھٹکارا ہے، مہربانی جو کرے موت کو چھٹکارا ہے، کب تلک رات کو ہم نہ لو فریاد کریں، یا الہی یا الہی علی اصغر مجھے یاد کرے، گود پھیلا کے کبھی کہتی ہے دلبر آجا، روح بے چین ہے آجا علی اصغر آجا، دل تڑپتا ہے میرے گود کے اندر آجا، فاطمہ کے لیے فاطمہ کے لیے بوند پانی کے لیے ہائے تیری جان گئی، میں ساتھ کے گئی، میں ساتھ کے گئی، کے سینے سے میرے سینہ لگا دو بیٹا، آگ بھڑکی ہے کلیجے میں بجھا دو بیٹا، خشک منہ اپنا میرے منہ سے ملا دو بیٹا، ایک نظر چاند سی تصویر دکھا دو بیٹا، ایک نظر چاند سی تصویر دکھا دو بیٹا، جاؤ پھر خلد میں ماں تم کو نہ بہلائے گی، ایک دم سے نہ زیادہ تمہیں ڈرائے گی، ایک دم سے نہ زیادہ تمہیں ڈرائے گی، لوریاں ہم تمہیں اے لال دیا کرتے تھے، آپ لیٹے ہوئے جھولے میں ہنسا کرتے تھے، گھٹنیوں گھٹنیوں گر آپ چلا کرتے تھے، کرتا پکڑے ہوئے ہم ساتھ رہا کرتے تھے، کرتا پکڑے ہوئے ہم ساتھ رہا کرتے تھے، ہائے ماں باپ سے قسمت نے چھڑایا تم کو، سونے جنگل میں میری جان سلایا تم کو، سونے جنگل میں میری جان سلایا، سونے جنگل میں میری جان سلایا تم کو،
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم السلام علیکم. First and foremost, I want to express our gratitude on behalf of IEC HUSAINI and IEC HUSAINI management and our resident alim, Moulana Sayyid Mahbub Mehdi Abadi al-Najafi, on how cooperative everyone has been over these past few days. Just these past few days, we've had almost 2,000 people within these premises And that is a lot of people to be handling in this type of setting. And we are expecting, inshallah, tonight and tomorrow night to have even more. So we request everyone to continue, as you've been, working with the volunteers, whether they're in parking, whether it's tabarruk, whether it's a sabil, whether it's inside the property. Please continue working with them. They are trying to guarantee that everyone has a very smooth and good experience during these days of Azhar, inshallah. Can I get a loud salawat? There has been a request. There's a young child, Mir Hasnan Ali Abadi, who is 7 years old. He is in serious condition in the ICU. Please keep him in your du'as tonight, especially as we have the Jula of Ali Asghar. Also, please keep in mind all those that are sick in our community and those other mu'mineen and mu'minat that are sick throughout the world. Please keep them in your du'as tonight. Lastly, as I've done, every day, request all of you to consider contributing to IEC. I know we've been talking about 313 people donating 500. That is for the operations of this building, obviously during Ayam Azhar, meaning all the 2 months and 8 days. But we also have a need for other things as well. So for in the entire center, for all the programs that we bring you throughout the year, we are actually looking for $1.35 million, which if you were to calculate it, we need 1,000 people to donate $1,350. Inshallah, on Sunday, we'll be doing a short fundraising alongside the Majlis that will go through that. So please consider what you can donate, talk to your families, talk to your spouses about what you can donate. We're looking for, again, 1,000 people to donate $1,350. And just to give you an idea of what IEC offers, I mean, as you've seen during these days, we have world-class speakers as you've seen in the last few days, but we also have programs throughout the year. We have over 450 programs. I mean, 365 days in a year, we have 450 programs. We have more programs than we do days in the year, mashallah. We have 5 weekly programs. We have 150 plus youth-focused programs. We have 150 plus English-focused programs. We have a peak attendance of over 2,500 people. Overall, on average, on any other majlis, any shahadat majlis throughout the year, we have at least 400 to 500 people in this building easily. So there's a lot that goes into it. And unfortunately, the way this world works, it only works with your contribution, because we are a center that is run by you. We are all volunteers, everyone here. We are all running on contributions from donors. So first of all, thank you for all those that have donated. For those of you that are considering donating on Sunday, inshallah, we'll be doing the campaign. Again, please talk to your families, talk to your spouses, see what you can do. Again, we're looking for 1,000 people to donate $1,350, inshallah. Can I get another loud salawat? Tonight we have a very special jula that has come from the Haram of Imam Hussain. And we were very fortunate at IEC Husaini to be able to work with the office of the Haram of Imam Hussain to acquire this jula. This jula will come out in here in this new hall, so we request everyone to stick around for that. It will go downstairs for the ladies that are listening. It will stay downstairs for a little bit before coming back upstairs, inshallah. Now, without any further ado, I request our guest speaker, Moulana Sayyid Ali Abbas Razawi, to come take the member and address the Majlis. Salawat par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Request everyone to come as close as possible. We are expecting a large crowd.
محمد وآل محمد بلندتر صلوات.
Wale Muhammad. Again, anyone in the back, we're expecting more people to come in through the back. Please move as close as possible to the stage, to the minbar, so we can accommodate people. There was actually people sitting in the shoe area yesterday, so we don't want that. We can fit a lot more people in here as you move closer. Thank you. Can we get another loud salawat?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم ورجساه وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، كافها يا عين صاد، صدق الله العلي العظيم. Our series of discussions go into a seventh night. Yesterday we were discussing the situation of the believers, in particular in the last days, which is known as the time of Hira. If you look at our traditions, you'll see that the last days, in particular before the coming of the Imam, is a time of bewilderment. And in this particular time, you'll find that many of the believers will start deviating away. A deviation takes place away from the haqq. And even though we may have 2 billion Muslims, but the reality is that Islam will become gharib, as it was gharib at the very beginning. This ghurba doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be very few Muslims. It's going to be that the vast majority of Muslims are not going to be ahl to this message. This message, which is an all-encompassing message. It's a message that opens its arms up to people to come. You've seen yourself how rigid as a community we've become. How we reject people as opposed to accepting people. Sayyid al-Shuhada doesn't look at somebody's color. Doesn't look at somebody's race. Doesn't look at their sins even. There's no one in this room who's not a sinner. From all the major sins, you'll find that every sin is committed. But Imam Hussein still opens up his arms and allows people to come in. The reason being is very simple. This is a place of tawbah. Majlis of Imam Hussein is a place where Allah forgives everyone's sins. To stop somebody coming or to prevent somebody coming in and of itself is a dhulm towards this message of Imam Hussein. So therefore, as you notice, we keep our doors open. Whoever wants to come, they come. Why? Because this is the place of tawbah. This is the place where people come in, they repent, their maqam is increased. You see, this is the place which is known as maqam as-salawat. There's a difference between istighfar and there's a difference between salawat. Now you may ask, what's the difference? Look, there's a difference there. A person does istighfar. What does istighfar mean? Istighfar basically means this. Istighfar means, Allah, I've sinned, I want to come back to you. So Allah forgives your sins. But the fact is the stain still remains on your soul. It's like with anything. The minute that you're exposed to something evil, it stains you, destroys your innocence. The beauty of salawat, nevertheless, is this, that it not only removes the stain, but increases the maqam of a person. This is why you notice in Ziyarat Ashura it begins with la'an first. The idea of la'an is a form of repentance. You are removing from yourself all of that negativity in Ziyarat Ashura, which is attached to Yazid and those followers of Yazid. The minute that you've removed those attachments from inside of yourself, after that you say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. This is open to everybody. This isn't something which is reserved for one or two people. This is why Majlis of Imam Hussein is open to everybody. And you see, over centuries, everyone comes. Not everybody comes to prayers. Not everybody comes in the month of Ramadan. But when it comes to Imam Hussein, the largest crowd you're ever going to have is on the day of Ashura. You'll see this for the entire year. There's a hikmah behind that. Imam Hussein has made it like that. All the year, look at it and see, throughout the entire year, whatever day it is, you won't get that many people who come. Why? Because Allah has attached an essence within the day of Ashura. Why? It attaches man's heart, it breaks a person down. So Ashura is open, and you'll see people who have never come, or people who really come, or people who come once a year. As long as they're coming once a year on the day of Ashura, there's still hope for them. And the day this door closes, hope goes. This is why I've always said, it doesn't matter who the person is. Keep the door of hope open. If that door of hope open, then everything else is open. The biggest, so in this time of Hayra, what's the most important thing? Look, we're trying to maneuver ourselves out of Hizb Shaitan. In the last days, the domain is Shaitans. Right? Everywhere around you, you'll see. When I say everywhere, all over the world, Islamic world, non-Islamic, everywhere that you see. When Shaitan rises at its peak, you will say, what's the biggest sign? Families break up. Arguments between husband and wife. Community members are fighting amongst each other. All of these things, when you find this ghiba is taking place, mashallah, within communities, the amount of ghiba, at least the ulama have a way around it. They call it ilmi rijal. You don't have a way around it. Ghiba, mashallah. Tu'ma, mashallah. Ila, mashallah. And then you turn around and you say, no, I should be at the front when it comes to prayers. You know what Amir al-Mu'mineen says? Look at Nahj al-Balagha and see. Imam says there's a person I love and respect. Now when Amir al-Mu'mineen says something, it's a big thing. He doesn't mention the name of the person, but he gives the quality of the person. He gives the quality of a person. He says, my brother in deen is this. You know what one of the qualities of the brother in deen is this? He says he listens more, he talks less. You know why he talks less? Because there are multiple major sins just in this. The minute your tongue opens, the minute your mouth opens, you're putting hijab in front of you and Allah. You're putting hijab in front of you and Sayyid al-Shuhada. They say that when a letter was written to the father of Ayatollah Bahjat in Gilan, they said, your son's gone into Sufism. Your son's gone into Sufism. And they made the letter nice and voluminous to say, he's gone into, his Qadi is the biggest Sufi in Najaf, and this and this and this. His father got upset, he got worried. He said, I'm sending my son for ilm-din, not to go and practice tasawwuf. So he writes a letter. In that letter he says, son, it's haram for you to do any extra practice but the wajibat. Forget all the mustahabat, because dhikr and everything comes into mustahabat. 14, 15-year-old Bahjat takes his letter and he goes to Sayyid al-Qadi. He says, what should I be doing? Shows him the letter. He says, what should I be doing? Qadi turns around and he says, who's your marja? Who do you follow? He says, Ayatollah al-Hasan Isfahani. He says, why don't you go to Ayatollah al-Hasan Isfahani and ask him what to do? So he went there. Ayatollah al-Hasan Isfahani looks at the letter, looks at him, he says, listen son, it's wajib on you to follow your parents. People came to Agha Bahjat. They said to him, Qadi is your spiritual dad. He's your spiritual father. Agha Bahjat said, no. My spiritual father has told me to go to my marja. My marja is telling me to stop. He stopped doing all the mustahabats. Only prayed the wajibats. But there's one thing he did in all of this. This is what you call taqwa. Taqwa isn't. What taqwa isn't is what shaitan does. What does shaitan do? Shaitan says, Allah, I'll worship you in a way that nobody's worshipped you. I'll do sajda in a way nobody else has done sajda. What does Allah say? He says, I don't want you to worship me the way you want to worship me. I want you to worship me the way I want you to worship me. I want you to worship the way I want to worship. What does Amir al-Mu'mineen say in Safin? They've raised the Qur'ans up, they're reciting Qur'an, they're fasting, they're praying. This isn't Islam. Islam is when you come to the wilayat of Ali. Right, the haqiqat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. If you don't have that wilayah, everything else is hollow. The more your wilayah increases, you'll find the more lazza, the more you find pleasure in prayer increases. This is why when you go to the grave of Sayyid al-Shuhada, when you pray there at Fajr time, there's a different meaning altogether. When you go to Masjid al-Nabawi, there's a feeling altogether. When you're praying in your homes, there's another feeling. But you notice something on the day of Ashura when you pray Fajr, you're connected, you break. It's as if you were standing in Karbala praying with Sayyid al-Shuhada. Why? So there's a connection that takes place. That's what's important. Understand this. Prayer is just a wasila, not belittling prayer. It's a wasila for you to get to Allah. It's not the end goal. If a person thinks the end goal is for me to sit down or stand up in the front line, if that's the end goal, that's not the goal. These are all wasilas. You've done shirk actually. Shirk khafi is when you see the end goal. That's prayer. Prayer is not the end goal. Prayer is the wasila that takes you to the end goal. Recite a salawat, please. Son, can I share in your milk drink as well? Now, by all means, you can talk, but talk at the back. So if I'm hearing about the milk chocolate, it becomes difficult for me to focus. Recite another salawat, please. So even these kids have haqq. They've come to the Majlis of Imam Hussain. They may not know what's happening. They're sitting, chilling with their friends. They have no clue what's happening. But you know, let me tell you something. Anywhere in this Majlis, there's barakah coming from Alam al-Quds. So bring your children here. Obviously not to disturb me, but just bring them here. You can sit at the back, wherever it is, play. Or even if they play, it doesn't matter. You know why? Because Noor is coming. When Noor is going in this guy's flesh, he doesn't know what's happening. It's young, going in the flesh. As they grow up, this Noor of Wilaya is going to go in their body. One day, he's going to hold the alam. One day you'll see the taboot, he's going to be holding the taboot. That's how we do it. But it's also important here to teach him, all your children, adab. How do you sit in the Majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada as well? How does one be quiet in the Majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada? How does one give respect to Sayyid al-Shuhada? All of these things are important. Anyway, we recite a salawat. Good boy. Well done. Right, guys, focus on me. 40 minutes, we'll be done. You focus on me, you switch your phone off, good boy. Everybody, all the elders have got their phones switched off, you switch yours off. Excellent. Recite another salawat, please. So what you find is this, that once you understand what the batin is, when you come, your ma'rifah increases. You find that your prayer increases. You find that connection increases. Prayer is a wasila. What it takes you towards is Allah. So anyhow, coming back to the story, Ayatollah Bahjat said, look, I'm not going to do any mustahab anymore because my father's given the hukum. But there's one thing that there's no hukum on. What is that? Silence. He says, I didn't speak for 4 years. And because I didn't speak for 4 years, now it doesn't mean that today is difficult because you got WhatsApp. You don't speak, but you say everything in the text message. You destroy a person in that text message without speaking. That's not what it means. It means no communication. Even when he would go out, he'd write down to say, I want eggs, I want this, I want that. No communication for 4 years. And if even to the last days, if you remember, some people may do. If you went to see istikhara, he'd say yes, no, and middle. So Allah tell us, should we do this? Yes. No. Middle. 4 years he didn't do. After those 4 years, they asked him, how many karamat do you have? He had close to 27 karamat in the basis of 4 years. When his father passed away after 4 years, they said to him, now why don't you come back to Qadi? He says, I don't need to come back now. Where I needed to get to, I've got to. What does that mean? You see, this is why I've said, the biggest thing is akhlaq, in particular in the last days. How to behave with one another. And that's the biggest problem that we have. If you're a leader in a community, learn to listen. You don't need to show your muscles to people. The most important thing is the minute that you take a responsibility in the community, remember, from now on in, however big you are, however much you would have told somebody off outside of that, now that you have a responsibility, now learn to listen. Listen to the pain of other people. It could be stupid for you, but look at how big the capacity is. Learn to listen to people. Learn to share their pain. That's how you make somebody. Otherwise, the hadith is there. Akhirul Zaman, Amir al-Mu'minin says to Kumail, our leaders, he says, our leaders will be the worst of people. Our leader will be the worst of people. In fact, we have Jewish tradition to say. Maimonides says, the Rambam puts 13 conditions within Judaism before the Dhuhur of the Mashiach, before the coming of the Mashiach. One of the things the Rambam says is this. He says that the leaders will have the faces of dogs. They'll be like dogs, right? So every religion has it. If I had time, I'd go into Judaism and go through the entire alamat al-dhuhur within their traditions, if I had time. Perhaps if we do, we'll touch on it in other nights. But part of what he says from the 13 conditions of the coming of Mashiach, he says one of them is that the family structure will devolve. Family structure will break. And at the same time, you'll find the leaders will have faces of dogs. They'll be the worst of people. They'll be the worst. It doesn't mean they'll be corrupt. No akhlaq. What is a dog? A man without an akhlaq. A man who shouts, rats, whatever it may be. But you find within the Islamic world, what is a leader? A leader is a person who has patience. What does Amir al-Mu'minin say? It should be wajib on anyone who takes leadership to read the letter of Malik that Amir al-Mu'minin writes to him about leadership. To train them to say, this is how you be a leader. He says, Malik, don't sit with people who are affluent too much. Learn to sit with people who are poor. Learn to be with them. Listen to their pain. Don't sit with just people who are going to say, you're great, you're great, you're great. Listen to people who also criticize you. They're not criticizing you really, are they? You are what you are. They're helping you refine. If you have those negative qualities in you, refine them. If you don't have those negative qualities, alhamdulillah. See, this is why leadership takes heart. You've got to be able to take it. But anyhow, that's not our topic. Topic is this. How do you know in Akhir Zaman shaitan is taking control of a community? Immediately you'll see family structures begin to break. Immediately you start to see people and children suffering. The biggest suffering today in our society is our children. The reason why you find the children are so scattered today is because elders don't lead by example. You know, sometimes the worst thing is this. You hear elders say, you know, this is for our children. This is for our children. Do it for yourself first. Ulama of akhlaq have said, if you want your children to change, first you change. Not turn around to people, you've seen this, right? You impose yourself onto them. What you couldn't do, you want your children to do. No, first teach them to do things that you're able to do. If you want your children to pray, you pray awwal waqt first. If you want your children to fast, you fast first. If you want your children to respect you, learn to respect your parents first. You want your children to respect you and you're raising your voice in front of your own father. If you want your children to be good to their sisters, then you be good to your sisters. If you want your children to be a good spouse, you learn to be a good spouse first. If you want your children to share, when you come into the house, don't start eating before everybody else does. Be the last to eat. Let the children eat first. You're teaching them. What are you teaching them? Selflessness. If we don't have these qualities, how are we going to impinge these qualities on our children? And ulama of akhlaq go further and say, become their friends. Don't dominate like we said. Outside you're Salman Farsi, inside you're like Shimmer. All of a sudden you walk in, your wife says, there you go, mashallah. He's come into the house now. Now we're in trouble. Right? You don't want to be like that. You want to be such that children come to you. Your wife or your husband or whatever it may be, they want to sit with you, they want to talk to you. This is how ulama in the past was so great. They asked one of the ulama, in the time of Ayatollah Gul Paygani, they used to ask and they said, in your time, Agha, did people give dars-e akhlaq? He said, we didn't need any dars-e akhlaq. Our ulama were amali in those days. Ayatollah Abdul Karim Ha'iri, the founder of Hawza al-Qum. Right, they say one day a flood came into Qum. In the olden days it used to happen, and because of the ground of Qum, it used to get dirty. So he says, as they were coming out, there was this Talibul Ilm who was there. One of the Tullaba was there. He didn't have any shoes. His shoes got swept away. Marja of the time, Abdul Karim Hairi, takes his shoes off. He says, son, take my shoes. He says, Agha, your feet are going to get dirty. He says, son, I can wash my feet, but you need to get to your lesson. When he practically implemented that, that's when akhlaq comes into a society and a community. Doesn't come just by reading books. When the leadership show akhlaq, then everyone becomes the same. And remember, you're within yourself, leaders within your own homes. When you're in your own home, it doesn't matter if you're the youngest, one day you're going to get married, you're going to be the leader of your house. When you're the leader of your house, if you're not leading by example, then what are you doing? You're creating something very negative for the future to come. Learn to lead by example. Be merciful, be kind, be everything that you want your children to be. Then have hope that there'll be something better than you. Otherwise, we're enforcing in our children, you've got to be like this, you've got to be like this. No, you're putting undue pressure on them. In ulama of akhlaq say, in akhir zaman, befriend them. Become their friend. That's the only way you're going to save them. Otherwise, you've had generations lost, you're going to have generations lost. Look at what Amir al-Mu'mineen used to do. Lion of God, Asadullah al-Ghalib, Ghalib ala kulli ghalib. Right? What does he do? They say, children come to him, he puts his knees down, hands down. All four put, come onto my back. Ali ibn Abi Talib, Khalifa of the time, on his knees, children are coming on his shoulders. Come. Where did he learn it from? Rasulullah. Rasulullah would run with children. People say, oh Rasul, this is your shan? This is not. They go, what are you talking about? These are children. Let me play with them. Let me show them kindness. Because remember, it doesn't matter. Children require kindness. Without that kindness, the development doesn't happen. Now look, I'm not here to discuss psychology. That's not my field. We could discuss philosophy, fine. These are not my fields. But the only thing I can say here is when you take what Ahlul Bayt are saying, implement them, in particular in Akhir Zaman. Look, gone are the days when the way that our fathers were may have been different. But today, when your biggest enemy is the phone that you give your child, we said two things at the very beginning. Inhiraf of deen, which is taking place. Today people are saying, Ismat Imam, what is that? This Imam's not ma'soom. Every pillar of your deen is being attacked. And the biggest pillar that's being attacked, Azav Hussain. People are taking you away from Ahlul Bayt in the Azav Hussain, if you notice. People go 10, 15 days without even mentioning Ahlul Bayt in this day and age. Everything else is mentioned but Ahlul Bayt, right? So bear this in mind, but you'll figure out inhiraf ad-dini. The other thing bigger than that has an impact on your deen is inhiraf akhlaqi. And today you're seeing this. Because of that phone that people have, you can binge watch without even realizing it. That binge watching without realizing, you're looking at something that you shouldn't be looking at, and it might be it just comes up, sometimes it does. You're there, all of a sudden something pops up, astaghfirullah, you put it to one side. But you've seen it, your eyes are already najis, your heart has now become najis. There's an impinging on your heart. This is why, I still remember when I phoned one of the great philosophers of the world. I'm not going to mention his name. I remember I phoned him. He says, "You're phoning me from a mobile?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Put your mobile down, phone me from a landline." I said, "Why?" He says, "I don't have a phone." What do you mean? He says, I don't use a mobile. I said, "But you're one of the greatest Western philosophers in the world." Without mentioning the guy's name. He says, "I would say, but you're one of the greatest in the world." He says, "I may well be, but I know what's damaging for me and what's not damaging for my soul." Now, I'm not saying leave your phones. It's impossible. And it's a tawfiq of Allah. Believe me, it's a miracle in this day and age that nobody's looking at it. Because I can see all of you. So on the 7th of Muharram, it's a big deal. Or the 7th night that nobody's looking at their phones. But on an average day, even you see people in prayer, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and they're looking at it. They're on the, text messaging, answering. What's so important? What's so important? We haven't learned. I still remember one of the biggest institutions that look at other religions and see. Sometimes you can learn some great things from them. I had some very good friends once upon a time who, when it came to Shabbat, it didn't matter how big deals they were signing. The minute the time came, everything was off. Doesn't matter. We'll come back, we'll review it on Saturday night. Big deals. Massive deals. Seen it in front of me. Massive, the kind you can't even substantiate and cut. And people say, but this is a big deal. No, it doesn't matter. God has ordained that for the next 25 hours we go quiet. You can learn things from people. You know why you find people are successful from other faiths? Is because they have that sincerity when it comes that when they feel Allah has given them a hukum, they obey it. Remember, Allah doesn't turn anybody away. If you sincerely have yaqeen in what you're doing and you feel that it is for the sake of Allah, Just remember that. This is why our madhab doesn't put people to hell just like that. You know, we're not takfiris to put everyone in hell other than ourselves. We say everyone, if they have the yaqeen, if they're following Allah, that's between the marmalade, between them and Allah. It's not for me to judge, but you can take something good from them. But anyhow, look, as we were saying, akhlaq, why is it important? They say once upon a time, there was a governor of Ahwaz. Right, the governor of Ahwaz was a Shia. So they say that he used to get the maliyat, basically the taxes from the people. One of the followers of the sixth Imam one day goes to Mecca, after that goes to Medina, goes to the house of the sixth Imam, says, Mawla, I'm poor, I don't have any money. But your governor in Ahwaz, or this governor in Ahwaz who claims to be your follower, he's charging me taxation, I don't have the money. Do something. You know what the sixth Imam does? He writes a letter. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, to help your brother mu'min in need is a good thing. Writes the letter, gives it to him, says, go and give it to my governor of Ahwaz. They say when they get there, this man comes to him and he gives it to the governor. He says, look, I need to see you. Sixth Imam has asked me to give this letter to you. Man takes the letter, kisses it, put it in his eyes, opens it up, reads the letter. He looks up and he says, what's the problem? He says, look, I owe you 10,000 dirhams. I don't have the money to give it to you. I don't have the money to give it to you. What should I do? He says, don't worry, I'll pay for the 10,000. I can't wipe it off, but from my personal money, I'll give the 10,000. And then he looks up and he says, are you happy with that? When my Imam says, make your fellow brother happy. He says, are you happy with that? He says, I'm happy with that. He says, are you happy with the carpet you're sitting on? He says, I'm happy with that. He says, take the carpet as well. And he turns around and he goes, are you happy with what's around you? He says, yes. He says, take it as well. And he continues to go on and on and on. And he says, are you happy if I give you a piece of garden? He says, yes. He was so happy that the next year when he went to see the Imam, he says, your governor is such a nice guy. He gave me this and he gave me this and he gave me this. Imam was beaming. So they said, Mawla, he gave it to me and you're so happy? He says, when my follower does something nice for a fellow follower, the first people who are happy is us Ahlul Bayt. Bear this in mind. If tomorrow you do something for your brother with the intention that I'm doing this to make my Imam happy, believe me, in Ghaiba, your Imam is happy. When your Imam is happy, he takes care of you even more. Do you think it's possible that you make the Imam happy and the Imam doesn't help you? This is that family which is Kareem. You've not understood this family then, if you don't understand. Hussein, look at what Ali ibn al-Hussein does. He says, go and give this money to Marwan. He says, but Mawla, they killed your father. He says, nobody recited one piece of poetry for the sake of my father. I want everything to be wiped out. Go and give this to him to pay him back. Just remember that. Ahlul Bayt hold no debt. The minute that you do something good in the way of Ahlul Bayt will come back and help you as well. Bear this in mind. Don't ever forget the golden rule. You know, people always say, what should we do if we're in trial and tribulation? And you know, many people have been asking. Last night we concluded on Du'a Tawassul, right? We concluded on Du'a Tawassul. Du'a Tawassul is something which builds your wilayah as well. Du'a Tawassul is something that builds, it's like aggregate building for the time that comes when you require something. Then you go back to this dua, Allah accepts your du'as. Right? So in this way, when a time like this comes, what do? The best thing you can do, help your brothers. This is why you notice, when you're in problem, give charity. Tradition is there to give charity. If you go to Salat Salawat and come forward, please. We've got space here if you guys come here. So just come over here so that people who are coming, they don't need to sit next to the shoes. There's some space over here as well. One more salawat, please. There was a big scholar by the name of Sayyid Mahdi Qawwam, one of the awliya of Allah. Sayyid Mahdi Qawwam was one of those people who was, again, not very long ago, person in the 20th century. Some of the elders remember him. One of the good things about this, said Mehdi Qawwam, was that he was connected to the Imam of the time. And he would do the helping, the bidding of the Imam. They say, how does Mehdi Qawwam become Mehdi Qawwam? Look at it and see, how does a Shia be? What is the quality of a Shia? They say one day, again, in this Qum, you find that this flooding came. They say there was a dog which was drowning there. Mehdi Qawwam doesn't, what would we do? Najis, Tahir, this. He didn't do any of that. Took his abaqaba off, jumped into the water, grabbed the dog, put the dog next to his chest, pulled the dog out. People said, what are you doing? He's saying, I'm saving a makhluk of Allah. That's how somebody like Mehdi Qawwam becomes Mehdi Qawwam. So if you look at it, it's the small things in life that matter. It's not the fact that you pray thousands of units of prayers. Thousands of units of prayers is a good thing. But what takes you to that high level is the selflessness that you show people. There's a particular story though which is interesting. They say one day Mehdi Qawwam, all the gangsters of that particular Tehran used to know Mehdi Qawwam. Because he was so nice to them, he would be able to change them, change their perception. He says one day where he went to a house of disrepute. You could guess what it is. Knocks on the door, a lady comes out. He turns around and he says, has a girl come to this house of disrepute in the morning? He says, yes, there is a girl. Go, what do you want with that? He says that I want to release her. He says, what do you mean? He says, how much is it going to cost you? I'll give you whatever money you want. I want to release this lady. He says, fine, X amount of money. He gave it, took this young girl, asked her a question. Said, why have you come to this house for? She says, I'm in poverty. I don't have any money. I've been crying since the morning. I didn't want to get involved in this bad fail. I didn't have any money, so I had to come here to support my family. But how did you know I was here? And how did you save me from committing any haram? He says, I saw Fatima to Zahra come and say, one of our girls is there. Go save however much money it takes. Says Mehdi Qawwam, take all of the money that you have, whatever money you have, go and save one of our followers. What does that tell you? That tells you this, that if you're close and sincere to Ahlul Bayt, in your difficult moments, Ahlul Bayt will come and help you. Right? Bear this in mind. But who do they come through? They come through individuals like this. You don't find Ahlul Bayt doesn't come to everyone. There has to be something inside of you. You have to be special. There has to be something different in you for Ahlul Bayt to come. Each one of you can be that. Each one of you can be an ambassador. How do we do that? Raise yourself higher. Raise yourself. These are not just stories I'm giving. The reason, if I gave stories of the Imams, you would say, well, these are the children of the Prophet. If I gave you stories of the Prophet, you'd say these are prophets. I'm giving you stories of people who lived in your lifetime to let you know that you can be like that as well. Don't ever sell yourself short. Your maqam as a follower of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad is lofty. You can be like Habib and you can be like Salman. Imam Zaman doesn't need, by the way, doesn't need just ordinary people. He doesn't need mujtahids. He doesn't need marjas. Imam Zaman needs Salman. Imam Zaman needs Abu Dhar. Imam Zaman needs Miqdad. Imam Zaman needs those people that when he gives the hukum, they get up. And look, when people talk about countries and this and that, Imam Zaman doesn't need countries, he doesn't need people. You know what Imam needs? If you look at all the riwayat, he just sees three things. One, purification of heart. Look, let's say for example, we develop a company for the Imam. Our aql is there, Imam is there. It's like a child building something for a PhD or a professor. That professor looks, he says, right, good try, my friend. But this isn't to the standard that I wanted at. Right? Bear this in mind. So what is three things in the riwayat that says? One, purity of the heart. You want your Imam? Purify your heart. Then you have a connection. In time of ghaibah, how does a person connect? Purity of the heart. Second thing which is important, ishq of Imam should be increasing. Ishq of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Why? Because the Quran says, قُلْ لَا أَسَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. So firstly, ishq of purification of heart. Ishq of Ahlul Bayt. But thirdly, ma'rif of Ahlul Bayt. That's all that's required. Nothing else is required. From the riwayat, nothing else is required. Why? If ma'rifah increases, the job is done. Why? If you look at Salman, what's the qualities he had? Mawadda for Ahlul Bayt. Khandan Risalat. He was an old man. He couldn't get up, he couldn't run, he couldn't fight, he couldn't do anything else. What did he have? Mawadda. What else did he have? Ma'rifah of Ali. When nobody else did, he had ma'rifah. What else did he have? Cleansing of the batin. When all of these things come together, then what happens? Then you know what haqiqat is. That's the direction we need to go. So in this day and age, make sure you implement them in your families. Look, our time is going very fast. And there's a lot to say, and there's a lot to do. We've only got very few nights to go. It's difficult to believe that we're already in the 7th night. This time next week, it's all over. That guest who came takes his time to come, but goes very quickly. Goes very quickly. Look, tonight, you have a special cradle that's coming. That's been in the home of Hussein for the last year. You have a special cradle that's coming. Today, I want to recite slowly, because I know that there are many people today who have come with hajat. There are women today who can't have children. Allah, for the sake of Ali Asghar, grant them children. There are people sick today. Allah, for the sake of Ali Asghar, may Allah remove their illnesses and sicknesses. Shafa is on the door of Ahlul Bayt. Don't ever lose hope. As long as Hussein ibn Ali is there, you've got nothing to lose hope. Don't ever think that you're alone. Even when you feel there's no one with you, listen to Masaib of Hussein. When those tears come into your eyes, you come to realize that you're not alone. Right? Allow me to recite slowly today. Many people want to cry. Many people want to ask. These nights are not going to come back. Before we do, though, I want to give you 2 stories. One story that happened in my own Scotland. Many years ago, I say many years ago, it's not that many years, maybe 15 years ago or so. There was a couple who lived in the Highlands. Now look, Scotland is the same size as England, but it has a fraction of the population. You can imagine there's more people living in London than the whole of Scotland. In the Highlands, where there's very few people, no mosques over, at least in those days there were no mosques. There was a couple, both of them doctors. They couldn't have any children. This doctor told me himself on Hajj once, if I remember correctly, they couldn't have any children. When they couldn't have any children, they tried everything. Nothing was working. Nothing was working. And the doctors themselves, they know. They said, we've given up hope almost. They said as they were sitting in the Highlands, they used to live stream directly. This is when live stream first began. They would be live streaming to the mosque in London and they would be watching. They say that they were watching together one day, and one day it so happened that the cradle, the chula of Ali Asghar was raised. So when both of them saw the chula on the screen, the wife says to the husband, at the end of the day, how difficult is it for a woman who can't have children, right? But just remember, how difficult is it when she sees other women with children and she can't have any children? But even more difficult it is when a woman has children and those children are taken away from her. If you want to understand the pain of Rabab, just look at the empty cradle when it comes. That'll tell you how difficult it was for that mother. Right, so they say husband and wife, but wife says something. She said to her husband, she says, look, I've tried everything. We've tried everything. There's no solution for us. Says, but let's do one more thing. And what is it? Says, look, we can't physically be there, but this cradle is on the screen. Why don't we both touch the cradle and we ask Imam Hussein for the sake of Bab al-Hawaij, Ali Asghar, maybe our dua may be accepted. Both of them say, we touched the screen and we said, Mawla, for the sake of Bab al-Hawaij, give us a child. You know what happened the following year? The same couple were there in Bain al-Haramain. We bumped into them. They had a small baby in their hand. We asked them what happened there. He says it was not long before this that Sayyid al-Shuhada finally gave us the son we were looking for. Said, what's the name of this son? They replied, they said, Ali Asghar. Hussein doesn't need anyone despondent there. You know when a heart breaks, right? You know when a heart breaks. Hussein's heart is soft heart. Imam Hussein can't take people's pain. You know, somebody comes in front of Imam Hussein, begins to cry. You think Hussein ibn Ali can take that? Imam says, let's give it to that person. Awlad, where do you come to the door of Sayyid al-Shuhada? You'll see this. Look, you've heard the story of the Raib, right? What happened? You've heard the story, it's in front of you. 1 son was given, 2 sons were given, 3 sons were given. Why were the sons given? This man moves away from the Prophet, despondent. Rasulullah knows exactly, he's trying to train people the ma'rif of what Hussein is. Small boy comes. He says, oh person, why are you leaving my grandfather sad for? He says, it's not within my nasib to have a child. What does he do? Grabs him by the hand and takes him back in again. He says, grandfather, why haven't you given it to him? He says, it's not within his nasib. He says, but grandfather, if it was in his nasib, would they come to us? They come to us to change nasib. And it's that moment when Hussein, all of Jalal of Imamah says, 1 son, 2 sons, 3 sons, up to 7 sons. What happens? That voice comes, Hussein, you move from here. Otherwise, as long as Hussein is standing there, he'll continue to give. Right? So in this way, remember whose door you've come to. Tonight you've come to the door of Hussein. So remember, when you've come to the door of Hussein, things are accepted. I'll give you one more story. Then I'll move on. I remember in Qom there was a time. There was an Indian student. This was in front of the eyes of all the students that took place. His child was sick. So he took the child to the hospital, and the big hospital there is Bimaristan and Gulpegani, so he took him there. It just so happened that afterwards, many of the students saw that this student left the hospital empty-handed. He was dejected. Why? His child had died in the hospital. And they physically saw him, we all physically saw him. He was walking from the road of the house to the door of his house. He would then walk out and he would walk in, and he would walk out and he would walk in. Somebody asked him, they said, brother, why don't you go in the house? You know what his reply was? He says, I don't know how to go into the house. He says, why? He says, when my wife gave me my child was alive. Now that I've come back, I don't know how to break it to her. I don't know how to break it to her that a child has died. At that moment, he says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Today I've realized why Hussein may have been walking. As he walked from the door of the tent, he used to go outwards, and he used to walk backwards and forwards. And you'll see this as well when it comes to the day of Ashura. Look, if I can recite it, if you could listen to it, when it comes to the Masa'ib of Ali Asghari, even I'm delaying it because I know how painful it is. Where to start? How much can you take? Just remember this. They say that when Imam Hussein was moving from Medina to go, they say he said to Sayyidah Zainab, he said, gave her the list, said, bring everyone. One by one, everyone was to be bought. They say a time came when Hussein was sitting on his masnad, he was sitting on this chair. And they say Ali Akbar was on one side of Hussein. They say Abul Fadl Abbas was on the other side of Hussein. And one by one, they were calling the women to come and mount the mahmils, as they say, the camels which were there. So when they said Ali Akbar, Layla is coming, Imam Hussein would say to Ali Akbar, go take your mother, put her on the camel. So one by one, he was sending one person by one person by one person, one son by one son, to take their mothers and take them back again. They say when Kulthum was coming, Fidda came out and said, Kulthum is coming. They said at that moment, Imam Hussein says to Abul Fadl Abbas, go take our sister, go and put her on the camel. Eventually they say a time came when Fidda finally comes out and she says, and now the daughter of Zahra, Zainab, is coming. And at that moment, Imam looks to Own and Muhammad and says, go, take your mother. And at that moment, Zainab says, no, today not Own and Muhammad. So he says, Ali Akbar, you go. Ali Akbar was turned back. They say, Abbas, you go. Abbas was turned back. They say, Hussein himself stood up. And as he goes, at that moment, a sister with tears in her eyes said, today, brother, not you. Says, then who? Says, that person who on the 11th of Muharram is going to be taking me up. I want that person to come. Tradition says, Imam Zain al-Abidin walks forward, takes Sayyidah Zainab by the arm, lifts her up and puts her there. But you know what the tragedy is? The tragedy is this: on the 11th of Muharram, when all of the women were standing there and all of their sons were lying there, one woman comes forward. When the army of Yazid gave the hukum, put all of them on their camels, there was no son there to put the ladies. The ladies were all crying. One Sayyidah Zainab comes, puts one knee on the ground of Karbala and says, all of you ladies, stamp on my knee and go up. All of the ladies begin to cry and they say, how is it possible that Ali and Batul's daughter, and we stamp on her knee to go? One by one, all of the ladies are going up, right? But they say that there was still one person missing. And who was that one person? There was one small child who was holding on to Fatima Sohra, and he wasn't letting go. They say that all of the women were trying, and all of the women weren't able to do so. Sayyid al-Shuhada walks in, and he sees that this child is holding for dear life. What does Imam Hussein do? He comes forward, whispers something into the ear of Ali Asghar. Ali Asghar jumps into the arm of Imam Hussein. Even at a couple of years old, Ali Asghar understands, has ma'rif of his Imam. I'm accelerating everything. I'm accelerating everything. You know what time comes? 9th of Muharram comes. Shab-e Ashur comes. When Shab-e Ashur comes, Imam is walking from tent to tent to tent. Eventually he comes to a tent where a young lady is sitting in that tent. Cradle is there, child is in the tent. You know what she's saying? She's saying, son, I'm not from Banu Hashim. I'm not from Banu Hashim. And I don't have a son old enough to sacrifice. Son, I'm wondering that on the day of judgment when your grandmother Fatima Zahra comes, what am I going to say there? Imam Hussein has tears in his eyes listening to this. He knows what's going to happen on the day of Ashura. What happens on the day of Ashura? They say when the time of Asr comes, when this Gharib Hussein is alone, when this Madhloom Hussein is alone, they say something. They say Hussein stood there lonely. وَنَظَرَ شَمِيلَ وَنَظَرَ شَمَالَ وَنَظَرَ يَمِينَ. He looks to one side, he looks to the other side, and at that moment Imam Hussein says something. He says, هَلْ مِن نَاسٍ يَنْصُرُنَا. He says, when he cries like this, he says, is there anyone to help us? And then he cries again and he says, is there anyone to help the haram of Rasulullah? Meaning, is there anyone to help the hijab of the women of Rasulullah? They say all of a sudden, all of the women begin to cry. And as they begin to cry, he turns around and he says, who's crying in my lifetime? I'm still alive. And as he turns around, the women say, this child has chucked himself from the cradle and he's lying on the floor. Imam Hussein now walks in. You know, Arbab and Maqatil, right? They say something. They say Imam sends the mother out. He says, give me the child, but you go out. He calls Zainab. He says, grab this child. It's written, it says that Zainab grabs the child. He says, the mother won't be able to do this. Why? Because Imam Hussein gets a white parchment. In the way that you shroud a dead, he puts the parchment down. He takes the child. Brother and sister puts the child on the parchment, and they begin to tie this child. And this child is tied. He grabs the child, and he says, as he comes out of the tent, has a child in his hand. They say Imam changes his amama, puts on the amam of the Prophet to signify that I'm not here to fight. Puts his abba on, begins to walk As he begins to walk, a small girl comes to him. Father, where you going? Maybe he was going to get water, who knows? They say he hides the child under his Abba. And as he goes out, when Mukhtar asked, he said to the army of Yazid, was there a time you felt sorry for Hussein? The reply came, there was a time we felt sorry for Hussein. Says, what was that time? He says, when we saw Hussein come out with a small child in his hand. He says, at that moment the entire army of Yazid began to cry. Hadith says, there was one moment that Hussein felt the most heavy from all of the Karbala. They say there was one moment that even Allah gives condolences to Hussein. When was that time? It says when Ali Asghar was going, Allah himself says, Sabran ya Hussein, Sabran ya Hussein. Patience Hussein, patience Hussein. Why? It was heavy for Imam Hussein as well. Imam Hussein wasn't able to take it. The most difficult moment, they say Hussein read 2 units of prayer to say, Allah give me patience because I'm taking a 6-month-old baby. They say when the 6-month-old baby was brought out, they thought Imam Hussein had brought a Quran out. When Imam Hussein was standing there, he says, you may have animosity to me, but this child has done nothing. If you think I'm going to drink the water, give the water to the child. He puts the child on the ground, and as he does that, the tradition says that this child was so thirsty, he would open his mouth, close his mouth, open his mouth. When you take a fish out of water, you see it opens, it closes, gasping for air. Child was gasping for air. It puts out his tongue. The tongue was so dry. Everyone begins to cry. At that moment in time, Imam Hussein lifts the child up. Umar ibn Saad comes forward. He looks towards Hurmala and he just says one thing. He says, Iqta kalam al-Hussein. Hurmala, cut this kalam of Hussein. Silence him, close him. Says otherwise there's going to be a revolution in this army. You know what happens? You know what happens? They say that Hurmala grabs an arrow. Generally when an arrow is fired, it makes a hole. It makes a hole. But in the Maqtal it doesn't say that. Arbab and Maqatil recite this. They say Dhuhaba min al-udhmi ila al-udhm. Dhuhiba. They say this kid was sacrificed, slaughtered like a child, slaughtered like a sheep is slaughtered. What happens there? They say Hurmala tries to fire the arrow once. Say arrow falls to the ground. Second time tries to fire. Second time arrow falls. They say Umar ibn Saad comes. He said, if I was to be asked who the most laeen person was, heavy-hearted person was, I would have said it's you, Hurmala. Hurmala looks up and he just says something. He says, I can kill this child. What can I do though? Every time I try and fire an arrow, a woman dressed in black, covered in black, comes to me and says this one thing. Hurmala, don't you have any children of your own that you're going to kill the son of my son? Tradition says Umar ibn Saad now stands in front. He says, Hurmala, you fire. They say Hurmala gets the arrow. When Mukhtar asked Hurmala, he says, what did you do? Hurmala replies, he says, I fired 3 arrows. Says, what were those arrows? He says, one arrow hit Imam Hussein on the forehead. He says the other arrow hit Abbas's water. He said, but there was an arrow that I fired. As I fired that arrow, Imam is watching, Ali Asghar is watching. Arrow is coming. As the arrow comes, and as it's coming, one tradition says, ulama have said this, mother is watching Rabab. As she sees, she looks towards the son and she says, son, arrow is coming, but baby's gonna hit Hussein. Son, raise your neck. Ali Asghar raises his neck. Arrow comes. Dhuhiba min al-udhni ila al-udhn. Says head is chopped off, head comes down, blood begins to flow. They say Imam looks up, looks down. Look, I can't recite, you can't hear. I'm accelerating everything. Imam goes back. The only body he buries in his lifetime is the body of Ali Asghar. Ali Asghar is buried. After that they say 11th of Muharram comes, 71 heads are raised. one person says, we saw Hussein go to the back and bury another body. They say Rabab, arm times behind the back, was wait, 4 horse riders go. They're hitting the ground to find where the body is. One time they hit, Rabab shakes. Second time they hit. They say third time when they hit, the arrow stops in the ground. As they pull out, a small baby comes. Head was dangling. Rabab falls. They say Shimmer comes, cuts the small head, raises it on a spear. Martha Mills.
جھولا تو نظر آئے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا جھولا تو نظر آئے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا اب ساری خدائی میں اب ساری خدائی میں اصغر نہ ملے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا جھولا تو نظر آئے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا جھولا تو نظر آئے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا اب جھولا جھلانے کو ترس جائیں گی باہیں خیمے میں کبھی دشت میں ڈھونڈیں گی نگاہیں تھک جائیں گی یہ آنکھیں تھک جائیں گی یہ آنکھیں اصغر نہ ملے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا جھولا تو نظر آئے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا ڈھائیں گے لئی ہم پر ابھی اور قیامت ڈھونڈیں گے شقی دشت میں بے شیر کی تربت شہداء کے سروں میں جب شہداء کے سروں میں جب اصغر نہ ملے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا جھولا تو نظر آئے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا ہاتھوں میں اٹھاؤں گی جب پانی کا کوزہ پانی میں نظر آئے گا بے شیر کا چہرہ بس عکس نظر آئے گا بس عکس نظر آئے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا جھولا تو نظر آئے گا اصغر نہ ملے گا کیا بیت گئی ہوگی اس ماں کے جگر پر سوچو تو ذرا کہتا ہے عرفان سے مظہر جب شے نے کہا ہوگا، جب شے نے کہا ہوگا، ارے اصغر نہ ملے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، جھولا تو نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، اصغر کے شلو کے جب نظر آئیں گے گھر میں، ایک درد سا اس وقت بھی اٹھے گا جگر میں، سب ہوں گے وہاں لیکن، سب ہوں گے وہاں لیکن، اصغر نہ ملے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، جھولا تو نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، جھولا تو نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، اب جھولا جھلانے کو ترس جائیں گی باہیں، خیمے میں کبھی دشت میں ڈھونڈیں گی نگاہیں، تھک جائیں گی یہ آنکھیں، تھک جائیں گی یہ آنکھیں، اصغر نہ ملے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، جھولا تو نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، جھولا تو نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، ڈھائیں گے لئی ہم پر ابھی اور قیامات، ڈھونڈیں گے شقی دشت میں بے شیر کی تربات، شہداء کے سروں میں جب، شہداء کے سروں میں جب اصغر نہ ملے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، جھولا تو نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، جھولا تو نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، ہاتھوں میں اٹھاؤں گی جب پانی کا کوزہ، ہاتھوں میں اٹھاؤں گی جب پانی کا کوزہ، پانی میں نظر آئے گا بے شیر کا چہرہ، بس عکس نظر آئے گا، بس عکس نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، جھولا تو نظر آئے گا، اصغر نہ ملے گا، یا حسین یا حسین۔ ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیاباں میں، ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیاباں میں، ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیاباں میں، اصغر میرے اصغر جانی، اصغر میرے اصغر جانی، ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیاباں میں، ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیاباں میں، ظالم نے کیا وہ ظلم ہاتھوں پہ شہیدی کے، ظالم نے کیا وہ ظلم ہاتھوں پہ شہیدی کے، غم
توڑ دیے اصغر کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے
کربل کے بیابا میں.
اصغر میرے اصغر جانی، اصغر میرے اصغر جانی.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے
کربل کے بیابا میں.
ایک ہوک اٹھی دل میں دیکھا جو سوئے مختار.
کوک اٹھی دل میں دیکھا جو سوئے مختار.
روتے ہیں کھڑے سرور کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے
کربل کے بیابا میں.
اصغر میرے اصغر جانی، اصغر میرے اصغر جانی.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں. ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
بے شیر کی میاں کو دامن میں چھپا لائے.
شیر کی میاں کو دامن میں چھپا لائے.
ماں دیکھتی ہے منظر کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے
کربل کے بیابا میں.
اس ننھی سی میاں پر تھے بین سکینہ کے.
ننھی سی میاں پر تھے بین سکینہ کے.
دنیا سے گئے اصغر کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے
کربل کے بیابا میں.
تو ماں کا دلارا ہے کنبے کا تو پیارا ہے.
ماں کا دلارا ہے کنبے کا تو پیارا ہے.
روتے ہیں سبھی تجھ پر کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ
نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
اصغر میرے اصغر جانی، اصغر میرے اصغر جانی.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں. ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
دن رات نگاہوں میں پھرتی ہے تیری صورت.
رات نگاہوں میں پھرتی ہے تیری صورت.
مر جاؤں گی میں مضطر کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں. ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
اصغر میرے اصغر جانی، اصغر میرے اصغر جانی.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں. ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
تنہائی پہ ہنستے تھے شبیر کے جو زالے.
تنہائی پہ ہنستے تھے شبیر کے جو زالے.
سب مٹ ہی چکے صابر کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں. اصغر میرے اصغر جانی، اصغر میرے اصغر جانی.
ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں. ماں کرتی تھی یہ نالے کربل کے بیابا میں.
شاہ سلام علیک،
شاہ سلام علیک،
شاہ سلام علیک،
شاہ سلام
شبیر و شبر سلام
شاہ سلام علیہ
عابد و ازبر سلام
شاہ سلام علیہ
نن مجاہد سلام
شاہ سلام علیہ
شاہ سلام علیک
شاہ سلام علیہ
شیعوں کے مولا سلام
شاہ سلام علیہ
شاہ سلام علیک
شاہ سلام علیہ تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال
کے جواب
کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے
جواب
اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر رونا نہ تیر کھا کر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر رونا نہ تیر کھا کر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے لال اصغر توحید کے چمن کی انمول تم کلی ہو میدان کربلا کے تم آخری علی ہو ڈرتا ہے تم سے لشکر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر توحید کے چمن کی انمول تم کلی ہو میدان کربلا کے تم آخری علی ہو ڈرتا ہے تم سے لشکر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال
کی جواب
کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تیروں کے مادے اے میرے لال تیری بہادری کا یہ انگ دیکھ
دیکھنے کو اپنے دکھا دے جو ہے اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر غازی بھی نہ رہے ہیں قاسم ہوئے ہیں ٹکڑے بابا تیرے ہے تنہا ہر سوئے لاش بکھڑے بن جا جوان اکبر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر رونا نہ تیر کا کہ اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر حسین یلغار ایسے کرنا جعفر بھی جھوم جائے دادا علی ولی بھی خیبر کو بھول جائے کربل بنا دے خیبر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی حسین حسین اے میرے لال اصغر یلغار ایسے کرنا جعفر بھی جھوم جائے دادا علی ولی بھی خیبر کو بھول جائے کربل بنا دے خیبر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی حسین حسین اے میرے لال قاتل کے سب ارادے تم بے حجاب کر دو سفیانیت کا چہرہ تم بے نقاب کر دو انسانیت کا رہبر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر رونا نہ تیر کا کہ اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر حسین لال اصغر توحید کے چمن کی انمول تم کلی ہو میدان کربلا کے تم آخری علی ہو ڈرتا ہے تم سے لشکر اے میرے لال اصغر کہتی تھی رو کے مادر اے میرے لال اصغر حسین 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 اللہ
السلام علیکم عبد اللہ السلام علیکم رسول اللہ السلام علیکم امیر المومنین السلام علیکم یا فاطمہ الزہرا، السلام علیکم حسن مشتبہ، السلام علیکم حسین شہید بکربلا، السلام علی الحسین وعلی علی ابن الحسین وعلی اولاد الحسین وعلی اصحاب الحسین جميع شہداء کربلا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. السلام علیکم بیمار کربلا امام سجاد، السلام علیکم امام محمد باقر، السلام علیکم امام جعفر الصادق، السلام علیکم امام حسین کاظم، السلام علیکم غریب الوطن امام علی رضا، السلام علیکم امام محمد تقی، السلام علیکم امام علی نقی، السلام علیکم امام حسن عسکری، السلام علیکم یا صاحب زمان ادرکنی، اجر اللہ تعالی فرجک وسال اللہ مخرجک، حضورک وجعلنا من اعوانک وانصارک ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ.